Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to READITATION. Because this is READITATION, we thought we would start with a screen share of something we can read together. Since we're going to be talking about reading, I want to say that this READITATION exercise, or the Facebook page that we have, is something that Ron and I have been doing for 40 years. So it is not something we came up with like yesterday and put it all together. We've been doing it for 40 years. It started in a very intensive program we were in with the Gurdjieff work. And in those years, this was 1980s, we were in the Gurdjieff work for 12 years. And there we read 2 hours a day, every day, one after another, 2 hours back to back. And we had to read in the morning. This was the main practice in that teaching. We read in the morning. So people that work read from 6 to 8 or 5 to 7. And we all did this more or less every day, because you can only imagine what that happened for 12 years. I know that's hard to imagine, but a lot happened. A lot happened that practice became a beloved way for us. And that's what it is for a lot of people. And when we started Vistar, that practice went to half an hour. You can see how we're evolving. Humanity is evolving. So we went to half an hour, and I think for the 15, 18 years of Vistar, most people did it every morning for half an hour. And some people here are still doing that. It changes and evolves like everything else. So I just wanted to say something about meditation and reading. So we'll be thinking about what we're reading, what we're hearing, but also what is reading? How are we reading? What is happening? This incredible thing called reading. So I'd like to start with just a screen share. Let's just read it for a few minutes in silence, and then we will go on. Okay, in the service to transcendency. Okay, so Ron and I would just like to do a little introduction here on, and then open it up to the power of the word, and we'll be hearing from any readings you have or poems that you have. We'll be putting them in between our conversation about it. What I really wished I could have done is had you send me those poems so we could put them on the screen for reading rather than us reading them, because we're really inquiring into reading. So the power of the word, I just want to start with saying that since this idea kind of emerged in me, it's been like a wonder to think that human beings, we've been reading. Reading has been around for, I actually looked it all up, and I'm not going to, tell you the whole history of it, but this thing that is on a piece of paper with dots and dashes, And then this ability we have to take those dots and dashes and transform them into something that can do many things: inform, inspire, transcend, many things. And what is this? How, it's so mysterious, and it's so incredible that this activity is going on, that activity of reading. It's amazing. For me, I just all of a sudden I thought, wow, that's incredible. So I want Ron to say a few words, and then we want to share a little part with you about from Gurdjieff, who we studied for 12 years, and what he says about something like reading, okay? Ron.
Yeah, the power of the word. There's so much to that, and I'm sure we all have something to add to that. I mean, ever since humanity's appearance on this plane, we've tried to record, to write down, to record, to carve into walls either history or significant events or truths. And in the last analysis, whether it's a book now or hieroglyphics on the wall, it's an experience which is ours to translate and enliven what is dead and written either on a piece of paper or on the wall or in a temple. So we are the meeting ground for something that came from a certain place, was captured and in a way deadened, mummified on a wall or on a piece of paper. And then we have to, using our divine power, resurrect it. We have to bring it to life. And the experience of reading that we're talking about currently is really an experience of exploration of the dimension of knowingness that is already within us. So, and that was, by the way, the reason we read so much, because Charles Ahart, he knew that if we persisted, we'd get to a place where we would know more than was on the page. Something within would begin to resonate and respond. I have volumes of books, not of books, I shouldn't say, of notebooks, of diagrams and writings from just reading, what happened in the reading experience. So it's an incredible experience, and it depends on how prepared we are, who we are, and at least to begin with, what we know, our quality of attention, which is very important, in order to open up endless universe of ourselves. All right, Vic. By the way, you'll have to guide me because I don't have the outline, the time outline in front of me.
Okay. All right. So A, B, and C influences. Gurdjieff, George Gurdjieff, Russian mystic. Credible system of transformation. It's called The Work. Byron Katie is The Work also, but this was The Work before Byron Katie was The Work. And ABC influences is everything in the Gurdjieff system is a very big construct. It takes amazing breadth and scope. So I feel kind of, I'm putting it into a little framework. But an influence is something, if you look in the dictionary, an influence is something that flows inside, something that insinuates, to flood, the Latin term. Flows inside, insinuate, and flood. So Gurdjieff posited that there are three influences that we live by. A influences are influences that we are succumb to that are of the material world. All the impressions we see, the kinds of things that we hear, the everyday things we hear, certainly the news, the kind of things that we read or get exposed to that are just completely from the relative material level. Okay, that's very briefly. B influences are very specific philosophical, psychological, spiritual books, the Bible, even the Bible, all the things that are bringing something higher to us are B influences. C influences are influences that come from consciousness itself, influences from a higher source. And C influences, he says, get taken down and put into B, the kind of books we read, when we're reading Eckhart Tolle, when we're reading even our own poetry that is being read, anything that has come from a source that is invisible and is brought down into B influences. So the reason to talk about this, we kind of know this, but the reason to talk about this is to become aware of it, that when we're doing reading, or we're reading a poem, or we're reading Rumi, or we're reading, Nisargadatta, or Ramana Maharshi, or anyone that has a connection, a direct connection with Source, that we are receiving influences, and we're receiving it through that sense of that frequency. So it's just a very, very interesting thing to keep in mind and see how that reverberates. Ron, did you want to say something more before we go on?
It's a wonderful concept. The Gurdjieff work, is anyone here familiar with the Gurdjieff work in any light? Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible gift. And it's one facet of the diamond of knowledge, which is very, very complete and beautiful. And with ABC influences, C influences, like when you are sitting directly with a teacher, an enlightened teacher. That is a C influence. It's coming to you. It's being transmitted orally and beyond oral transmission. And it's direct. It also can happen with us when we're reading and we suddenly hit a takeoff point and we enter into another dimension of understanding and knowing. So, but B influences, we know them. The books we read, the Bible, in fact, is a B influence in this Gurdjieff work. And an A and a B influence is when you think about something like gratitude. When your parents tell you, say thank you, Johnny, and you know the experience of gratitude is so far beyond that kind of mechanical response. So it gives us a sense of different kinds of frequencies which are available to us. Anyway, we love reading because there are times, each one of us will experience it, where we know a hell of a lot more that's on the written page. So we become perhaps a source of C influence ourselves. Yes, Vic.
Okay, so before we open this up, just read this to you from, it's an extract from the Gurdjieff work. So it says, we have to short circuit the hypnotic momentum of the ordinary ways we take in reading and create a space to allow ourselves to become knowingly available to receive such influences. So again, the awareness that we're doing something, even wonder, the wonder that we're reading, just the fact that what is it? And also, we'll talk a little later, just give you a very, remember we've done this for 40 years, so you can only imagine. So, but we'll talk, like some ways that you, when that reading is happening, some efforts that can be made that are very simple, like reading slower. Not reading, nothing wrong with how we're reading, or maybe there is, I don't know. But, that is our habitual pattern. So again, when we're doing this, that reading or we're listening to a poem, we're reading a poem. There are lots of things that we can do to allow those influences to fill us, to permeate us, because they're the ones that, give us life. So right now I'd like to open it up a little bit to a discussion here before we read a poem from someone, a discussion on the power of words, the power of words that transform us, like just what you're thinking, if anything comes to you, and also anything, any kind of thoughts you had about those A, B, and C influences. Let's just kind of dialogue about that a little bit. Just raise your hand if you want to contribute, and I'll call on you. And please, let's stay within 2 minutes of our contribution so we can get everybody have a chance. Okay? So the dialogue is open. Barbara, and then Linda.
I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to use your name as a C influence, Victoria. God bless, right? But it's so true. I remember years ago, I had been talking to Victoria about practicing gratitude before I went to sleep at night, because I felt that I was not connected with gratitude, and I wanted to have that sense inside of me. And I pushed it hard. I was pushing it. And I spoke to Victoria, and she said to me, she said, Barbara, you don't have to practice. She probably doesn't remember saying this. You don't have to practice gratitude. You are gratitude. And I thought, wow, that's an unusual thing to say to me. And I went home. I went home, and my husband and I went on vacation. And I'll never forget it. I was walking across the floor at this hotel, and my one foot was in the air, and all of a sudden there was a vibration inside of me that let me know that what Victoria had said to me was so true. And I've never been disconnected. It was like there were veils in front of the gratitude, and just by that one thing that she said to me, helped me to open to the gratitude that I am. So that's a definite C. I mean, I could not believe it. Very grateful for that, as you can tell.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. We could call it a V influence.
A V influence.
An L influence and an R influence and a John influence. Would everybody mute themselves and unmute yourself when you come up so we can just mute yourself now, and then when you speak, unmute yourself. Okay, thank you. Linda.
So a little piece of my life puzzle, here I'm 82 years old, has just come into play. I have never liked reading, and my parents always sent me to reading classes and everything like that, but I never took on any of the practices that I've been taught. I always would read one word at a time, and what I realized from this experience just now, and this conversation, that I've always had space in order to bring myself into whatever I took in. And that is just like the gift. I'm still living here, 82, with that same gift, because I never have read that. So therefore, I haven't read very much, but I get things through my ears. I'm taught by live teachers, by live people reading aloud. I'm taught by the audio form. And I actually, when I do read, I only choose to read contemplative things, because I have always needed the space around the words. I've spoken.
Beautiful. Yeah, we always say, don't readitate, don't be the reader. You know, be in it, be the reading. Robert.
I've always had a very different style of reading. I've been an avid reader from an extremely early age. I even started writing at a very early age, but I've come to understand how I read, and I've come to appreciate it. I think, well, I rarely, if ever, read one book at a time. I'm usually reading 2-3 books simultaneously. And part of that is that it's hard for me to just stay on one thing, and It's always been that way. And I always kind of rejected that for many years. And I came to embrace it. What I realized I do, and I'm starting to be more conscious of it, my reading, I end up, the choosing of books partly is due to just those are the books I get from the library. At the time, I mostly these days have been reading electronically from the library. And I might get 2 or 3 books at the same time, and I have a time restriction. But I'm starting to appreciate my selection of books and how when I'm reading the books, very disparate books, I realize that there is a dialogue between not only me and the book, but between the books as I read them. And they provide insight into each other. Just to give a quick example, I'm reading one book by a zoologist about what life on other planets would look like. And I'm reading another book by someone who talks about the early years of the radical right wing. And yet, reading and being open to it, I'm finding there are connections. And they inform each other, even though they're disparate. And I'm learning in a very different way. So it's just fascinating to see. It's just been fascinating experience.
Oh, just when Robert was speaking and Linda too, I was thinking about that. Obviously, some people are more auditory, other people are more visual. And it's interesting to think of reading in that way, the different personalities and different qualities we have in relation, how we engage with that activity. Anyone else? Anne Marie.
One thing to add to that is the concept of picking up a book and allowing the C influences to come in by just allowing the book to open up anywhere, and just in anticipation that whatever it is just perfect for me in that moment, and to trust that. And it never ceases to amaze me how sometimes I have to giggle inside, and because I immediately become judgmental and I say, no, I'm not supposed to read that now. No. I got to have something better. There's something better for me to read. But I just wanted to share this one small paragraph that I opened up to anywhere in this amazing book by Kenneth George Mills. And it's sort of on the thread of this. He says that newness is the name given to what you can't perceive from your personal point of view. Newness is the condition of a transpersonal state. And newness is that which is ascribed to the condition called metanoia, which is to go beyond the mind. That is the whole new consideration of the new evolution, which is to bring about a divine emergence. So when I read that, I think of, as Ron said, everything is in us already. The newness is right there. If we take the time with intention and listen to these C influences that are trying to communicate to us, that is what is going beyond the mind. And that is what brings about change, and the change in the transpersonal state, the change to be able to be in a new way. That's...
Well, Anne Marie, that was quite a reading. Anything from Kenneth Mills is quite a reading, and it would be incredible to stay on that. In Vistar training, we stay in a paragraph like that for 2 hours. 2 hours on that one paragraph. So we go in between the lines, over the lines, under the lines, till there's nobody reading. So anyway, let's hold that a minute. Just let's hold that, because John Hoover is a student of Kenneth Mills. Yes, John.
Thank you, Victoria. And for those of us who've had the pleasure of and privilege and great honor of hearing Mr. Mills speak the word, knowing that before there was the written word came the word from the source, and seeing it and experiencing it was the great honor of my lifetime and the greatest teaching. And as one of his books says, a word fitly spoken is transformative. And in the words that are written after they've been given spontaneously are perfectly set. Each has its place, each has its profound meaning, and to the reader who reads it carefully with discrimination, there is a wonderful transformation from it. And with my own reading of various things, because of that, and because of reading other teachers, because of reading other sacred men, Rumi and so forth, I can discriminate with whatever reading I want, and particularly in a short time, see if I want to read this or not, or see if it speaks to the truth, or if there are words fitly spoken that point to a higher meaning. And that can be even in an article about politics or history or whatever. I can tell by how it's put together and some of the words spoken, whether I want to pursue this and whether there's value in it. So, and that applies to any kind of reading, to keep informed or to find out about how to do things or whatever it may be. Thanks be for that experience.
Thank you, John. Thank you. First of all, I want to say hello to Wendy. Finally, you're here. Now we have two, I think we have two Wendy's here. All we need is Tinkerbell. And Janice, can't see you and you're on mute, but welcome. Welcome to this. And I know
I'm driving. I will be back at my computer in about 10 minutes, but I'm just driving, and I was trying to sit and listen. I sat in the waiting room for a while. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll be back.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're here. I know Janice from Unity Earth, and she's a poetess. And Wendy Foxworth we go back a long way to Barbara Marx Hubbard and Birth 2012 and the Vistar Method in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And all about we, from me to we. So I think at this point, we could keep weaving this conversation in and hear a poem or a reading. Okay, now we heard one from Anne Marie. I don't know, we could go with that, but maybe we could, is there anyone else who would like to bring something like that, to bring a reading or a poem that we could listen to? I wish we could read it, just but we're going to be listening to it. So does anyone have a poem or a reading that they'd like to share?
And maybe say something about the poem.
Oh, definitely. Okay, Wendy W. And Wendy, yeah, if you could just say something about it. You don't happen to have it there written out somewhere.
I do. I could post it in the chat if that would help. It's a short one.
Let's try that. Does everyone use the chat? Wendy's going to put it in the chat. Let's go in the chat and see if we could read it like that.
There we go. Just let me know whenever you want me to start, Victoria.
Yeah, please tell us a little bit about it, or
Sure, you got it.
do anything you want.
All right. So this is a poem that came to me after a meditation, and I had been sitting with the word gratitude and how powerful it really is. Sorry, we've got some construction going on here, and my battery on my computer's low, so I had to come in. So I hope that's not disturbing. So I had been sitting with what gratitude is and how it affects me, and these words started flowing as a visual. So I'll read it here. Grateful. Gratitude is more than the word. It is the path to free falling into the liquid cavern, splashing. Cavern's top is open like a maiden of fresh nuptials. Through it light streams as a misty Irish rain, landing in the midnight desert, so deep it cools the mantle. Grateful. Thank you.
Did everyone have a chance to read it on the chat?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right. I can just say for myself that this poem like makes my eyes tear a little bit. There's something about the sound of it. It just like my eyes feel like, it's not a sadness. It's just, it's the pictures. I'm a very visual person, so it's the pictures of the midnight desert and the misty Irish rain. That just really, really so beautiful. Barbara.
Yeah, listening to the poem and then reading it, so for me, it's more of a feeling nature, like I feel every word. I feel the gratitude. I mean, it's a wonderful description of how it feels.
Thank you. Wendy, would you like to hear somebody else read it?
Yeah, sure. That would be fun. Thank you.
Jordan, do you have it up on chat? Do you have it? You have it on chat?
I do.
Could you read it? Jordan, you have
Sure.
a beautiful voice for reading.
Grateful. Gratitude is more than the word. It is the path. Path to free falling into the liquid cavern, splashing. Cavern's top is opened like a maiden of fresh nuptials. Through it life streams as a misty Irish rain, landing in the midnight desert, so deep it cools the mantle.
Nice to hear in a male voice, right? Anyway, we could go on and on with this and record this and put behind it, but let's just go on to another poem. Ron, I wanted you to come in now and share something with us.
Poem.
If you want, I can put teetering up on or.
No.
Okay.
Actually, what I want to say is that for me, poetry, particularly sacred poetry or poetry from sea influences, has a quality not only of feeling, but the transmission of truth. And that is very important for me in the way, in what I write, because my writing is to transmit something of an experience that has an insight into truth in some form. For example, gratitude. I'm sure we all have poems about gratitude that involve gratitude. But as a quick example, some words, also from Dr. Mills, very short, which have transformed my life, actually. The words are, you are the tastiness to the dish. You are the tastiness to the dish. And part of the reading experience for me has always been to stay, not to run from something that hits inside, but let it develop, it's like a sonar against my experience. It has to resonate. And when it does, stay with it, really stay with it. You are the tastiness to the dish is a huge metaphysical concept. And it has the ability to transform our lives. And we can see it in many different ways. There are many different levels. But from one point of view, nothing out there exists without us. We are the ones that have to take it in our awareness, and then it finds its color, its fragrance, its meaning through us, what we are. So I don't want to dwell on it too long, but the aspect of truth in poetry, in reading, it is a means of transmitting that. It's so important. It's very much part of my experience.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. Okay. So how about another reading or poem? Robert.
Unfortunately, I don't have this in an accessible form to put in chat. So it is a poem from a book I put out a few years ago, a very short poems.
Hold on a second.
No,
I think there's a phone. Hold on. Okay. Robert? Okay.
no title. Walls built up over years at angles to each other, touching to give an impression of impregnability, allowing a feeling of certainty that nothing can get in or out or survive. If eyes follow hands and hands follow heart and fear let go, cracks can be found that let in light and air.
Robert, whenever I hear your poem, I want you to read it again.
I'm happy to. Walls built up over years at angles to each other, touching to give an impression of impregnability, allowing a feeling of certainty that nothing can get in or out or survive. If eyes follow hands and hands follow heart and fear let go, cracks can be found that let in light and air.
Okay. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. All right. Thank you, Robert. It's interesting for me. It's nice to see it written on the page too. I see it, I'm so attuned to reading that that does it, like puts something more into it.
Was it in the chat? I didn't see it.
No, he doesn't have it. He doesn't have
Oh, I
it.
see. Okay.
So yeah, we've been thinking of different ways that there's
What I
ways we could.
What I could do if people want, I don't want to take away from discussion, but I could type it into chat so you can look at it later if you want to.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah,
Okay.
really, you know, we were just experimenting with this, but what I'd really like is people to send me their poems early, and I would put them on a nice, Wendy's shaking head, you know, something on a nice framework, a nice image, and then we could read them. So, and there's a lot more we could do with that. But we could,
Knock, knock. It's Janice. I'm knocking on the door from my computer. Can you let me in and
Oh,
I'll get
yes.
off my phone? Okay.
okay, you're good?
Got to get rid of this.
Okay, but let's see if we can kind of go back to that poem a little bit. I'm always intrigued with the walls. We've heard a lot about walls in the last 5 years.
Is it just, I just noticed if I put in walls and then do a repeat to go to the next line, it sends. So I obviously can't figure out how to do this. So
It's all right. You know, the internet is a continual learning thing, you know, and we can, but we'll work on this, but.
It can be sent by email. It can be sent by email.
Yeah,
Because I think it's really lovely to take all the poems that come in this gathering. And, you know, it's like a unique happening when poets and readers come together. It has an individuality of its own, the meeting itself. And it's always wonderful to look at the gathering of poems. I know Victoria occasionally takes excerpts from each one's poem and then puts it together in one whole. So it would be great if people could send to Victoria an email with the individual poems.
there's a lot to talk about here. I'd like to talk to Wendy. Yes, Janice, you have to unmute yourself. Janice, you have to unmute yourself.
Ron, that's such an interesting idea, and I had that experience yesterday. I did a little workshop with Betsy Suzik. You know, Betsy from yeah. Okay, she did her Joy Fuel workshop. And she read a poem and created a concept. And then she asked everybody to take art, pens, pencils, crayon, whatever it is, and sort of like draw. She asked us all to pick kind of a phrase and then to draw in real time from that experience. And I wrote instead of drawing. And then at the end of it all, she put everybody's pictures and words up, and we were supposed to take from those and create another image that incorporated all. And I did mine with words that ended up in the next stanza of my poem. And it was a fascinating exercise to see what showed up when we did it individually, and then when we incorporated a little bit of everybody else's creativity. It was a marvelous experience.
Well, this is really.
You do that, Victoria, with people's poems? That's
Well,
sort of what you're talking about? Ouch.
This is okay. A little cramp. You all right?
Yeah, I hurt my knee, so it's okay.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to go here now, but I would love to talk to you and Wendy Watkins and Linda. And I think maybe we could collaborate on something with poems and poetry and color and you know, and yes, and Ron and I have been thinking to take all the poems on the Facebook page and actually create a book, Poems of the Spiritual Path, from Facebook poems and the spirit, Facebook post, all from one.
Great idea.
From a page. And I have a friend, and we've done a lot together that could do this for us really easily and not too much, not expensively. So
maybe we could present something like that during World Unity Week.
Absolutely.
And maybe collectively we could write a poem for World Unity Week that really embodies the action of what we're trying to accomplish this year.
I'm getting chills. I just spoke to John Ramos saying we want to have on the Vista thing a poetry room. So let's not take everybody. Everybody here is invited to collaborate on this. Everybody. You don't have to be a poet, because readings. I mean, first of all, a lot of the readings I read could be poems. Half of the people that write everything they write, they just write a All I have to do is make commas and take it down. It's a poem because it's all so poetic. The poetic, not just a poem. It's not a poem. So, but let's go ahead now because, you know, there are people here who we want to do this, but I really want to get us together. I'll send out a link and see when people can get together for this. And I will definitely talk to John Raymer and Ben and see what we could do for World Unity Week. I'm so excited. Okay. All right. Where are we? Let's see. Noon. Just Ron, should we want to give you, people raising hands, Barbara and Anne-Marie.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Robert's poem was really, was quite beautiful. It just, I was traveling the journey with him from the walls going up to the cracks in the walls and the light coming in. It was a beautiful rendition of what our life is in many layers that we continually, at least for me, I continually grow through. So thank you for those words there. Thank you for being the catalyst that the words came through. Really appreciated it very much.
Barbara, for bringing me back. Yes, that was beautiful, the wall poem. Let's go. Anne-Marie, did you want to say something about it?
Yes, and Barbara is quite the expert in gratitude. I mean, she just exudes with gratitude. She is gratitude. But I would just say that the combination of being able to merge these poems together, that is an explanation of the C influences to bring back what you were talking about, the A influences versus B influences and C influences. That allows the C influences to be at work and to make magic and wonder.
Beautiful. Yeah, and Robert, I just want to say that that poem with the walls and the coming out of the walls and the cracks in the walls, again, the visual, I'm sorry, but the visual for me, it's a video. It's an entire video. I just think it's just totally beautiful. And these poems all have a certain form too, if you notice. If we could get this organized in a presentation, they have like a certain flow. Sometimes when I hear people, the last Unity Earth meeting, all these wonderful people spoke, and I took just randomly a line from each one. Every time they spoke, I took a line from each one. By the end of it, I read it. Wasn't that a beautiful poem? And it started with the song.
It was.
I mean, it was
Beautiful.
poetry of the whole. Poetry of the whole. So
That's that. Hold that phrase. Poetry of the whole.
okay,
Let's write that down. That's important. We're gonna.
Ron, do you want to?
That may be a name for the poetry room or something like that. Poetry of the whole, and or instead of you, there's something to be that can be used for something. So hold it.
Well, it will be, I think. And
Poetry.
actually, that really is, it belongs on World Unity Week. It really does belong, because how do you put together the individuality of a bunch of beautiful readings, of writings, of poets, of anyone that is moved this way to contribute it? It creates its own individuality.
Mhm.
You know, you're looking at a how, something different than individual poems, and yet nobody's individuality is lost. It's
Mhm.
all there. So there's something beautiful about bringing it together in a way which really transmits even more than what is in the poetry.
I just totally love this idea. Just want to say with Dr. Mills again, Kenneth Mills, he speak about a bouquet of flowers. They're all individual, but the big thing is the fragrance. See, the fragrance is invisible. The poems are like different flowers. There's daisies and roses, and some have thorns and all these things. But what we're really looking for, the fragrance goes further. You only see them here and you can feel them here, but the fragrance is invisible and it is non-local, non-extensive. So we'd like to do something that has all the flowers and has a bouquet of fragrance, the fragrance of poetry, whatever. I mean, there's a million ways here. Just beautiful, beautiful. Janet.
there's also an important metaphor there in what you just said, Ron, because I work with, do you know Nina Meyerhoff? I'm on her leadership team for the One Humanity Institute. And one of the things that comes up for me, and I've been trying to get the group to really look in this manner, and I'd love to get your opinion on it, and that is, there's a fear about unity. There's a fear about oneness. One humanity can be scary to people. And it's for the very reason you just mentioned, Ron. It's the reason that now we have a lot of polarization in the world and a lot of nationalism, because people are afraid that being one means they lose their individuality.
Mhm.
And so what is so important is like the orchestra, the bouquet, it's the entire, it's like through your recognizing it's through recognizing your uniqueness that we become one humanity.
Yeah, that fear is one of the biggest lies, and it comes from people who have not experienced that sense of unity through a group that comes together, each one creatively, and something emerges which is beyond the group. In many years we've done group work, there comes a time when the group actually acquires a soul. There is something that happens beyond. But in any event, I think the message of doing it this way that we're talking about, I think is beautiful. It's in line what we have tried to do for many, many years through our group discussions.
Looks like Linda's bursting to say something.
Yeah, Linda?
Well, I'm jumping out of my skin, I'll tell you. I just, like, I can't contain myself because I feel the growth of something extraordinary happening here right now. I can't contain myself.
Well, Linda started here with saying that there's some resonance, and I felt it on all the Unity Earth calls with Linda, and it's just, it's always been there, it's just emerging. It's just coming out. I know there's so much, what you just said, what Janice just talked about is an entire, an entire world, individuality within the whole. I mean, I could go on that. I'd love to have a discussion with that.
That's a whole theme that we could do, like one thing on one day at Unity Earth, one session just on that alone. It'll allow, you know, people who aren't poets to come to the room, because everybody is one, and, you know, give a word, and then those of us who write can do what you did, Victoria, and give them back who they are in a new way through the words, like you did the other night at Unity.
Well, we could
It'd be a
go
great
on,
exercise.
we could go on with this because, you know, we actually lived that. We had a theater ensemble that we're collectively, Jordan was part of, and I'm an artist. I was an individual potter up till the age of 35, and then I had, say, a breakthrough, and working in collective consciousness with group intelligence, radical reliance on the invisible. I found my creativity, let's just say, the discontinuous jump. It was a discontinuous jump when I was involved in collective consciousness creativity. The creativity I experienced as an individual was extremely limited. I know it would be hard to explain all that. Some people could understand that. If you've had the experience of it, you know it. It's a different individual. It's not individuality, really. It's the authentic individuality that is there because there's such fulfillment without much, what do you call it, pressure, you know, as well as an individual performer. Oh God, I don't even want to go back to that. Anyway, we can, I don't know, I think we want to hear just a few more people's readings here.
I think so. Let's move on.
So,
I think
Ron,
John wanted to
John
speak,
Hoover must be-
and we haven't heard from Wendy
Foxworth, yes.
Foxworth.
John?
You hear me? Just a note on individuality and discipline. It's as Mr. Mills has profoundly spoken about it, and at the root of his teaching, one of the things I always remember him saying was, the discipline is the springboard to spontaneity. And beyond that is aping or emulating a great teacher does not mean you become a follower necessarily. It could be the key to your individuality. And he talked about great piano teachers, since he was a pianist. He said he could tell the students who had been with the great teachers, there was certainly something about it, fundamental something, but their individuality always came out. Because with the confidence, with the knowing of what was real about their teaching or whatever it is, and it applies to any kind of teaching, the individuality always comes out. And it's a wonderful thing to be free of the idea that the more you get involved with something, the more your individuality comes out, rather than the opposite of what we've sort of been taught, that we're not really followers, but we are seeking what we really are, truly are.
I really want to have this discussion for 2 hours on
I have a
individual.
little something.
And what I would love to have that with those kind of readings in the
Mhm.
discussion. So we keep on that metanoia, on the metanoia thing. We don't go into relativity and start, worrying about, will I be noticed? So anyway, but can we go to another poem? I'd like to hear from Wendy Foxworth. Wendy, we have to hear your voice.
Good morning. Good morning. Hello. I'm having a love affair with David White. So you even shared one last time from David White. Just touches my soul, the lyric, the musical nature of his writings. I love music. I think that's a real connect in this group, the making of music and understanding the whole and the journey of the part in the midst of the whole. He really is good at defining some of the times of that experience. So I'm just sharing one of his shorter poems, because he can go on very, very long, but it's called Sweet Darkness. And just as preface, just for 7 years, I've been dealing with an illness that has been an incredible journey and has touched into this sweet darkness many, many times. And it's a good place, this darkness. It reads, and I wrote it, I typed it in really fast. I didn't do the phrasing as a poem would do in the chat, but if you'd like to follow along, you can. Sweet darkness. When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. Time to go into the dark, where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure that you are not beyond love. The dark will become your home tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. The world was made to be free in. Give up all the other worlds except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn. Anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. So I spend a lot of time alone. And it's been very good. I fought it for a long time. I didn't want to be alone. I missed the chorus. I missed being in the choir, with the choir. And sometimes I still do. In a way, just kind of living disembodied, out of community, right? I mean, this whole COVID thing for so many of us, has been a calling in, this calling in to look at what is and choose differently. from what we're learning together. It's the energy of it for me has been very, very deep. What's going on there? We are being changed. I mean, there is a depth of change beyond our collective knowing, maybe at this moment, that this group all knows is happening. And it's wonderful to be in a field where you can feel that and not be afraid of it, and be in the journey with, and know that we are never alone, and that every day, whether through a poem or a book or a person or a conversation, life is having its way, and to trust in that, even in the midst of hard times.
Thank you, Wendy. That was a tableau in itself. So beautiful. Okay, John.
Speaking to that, I think this is a very succinct and profound statement by one of my favorites, Hafiz, about our sacred friendships and the value of maintaining them, reestablishing them. One of the men on my usual meetings during the week, he's 82 years old. He went out to dinner with his wife for the first time, and he, said that he realized just before even the pandemic started that he was kind of withdrawing from social contact. He was withdrawing from friendships and things that meant that to him, and so he has made a commitment to reestablish them, to go out more, to see people more, and to understand the value of his friends and the people he's met along the way who have meant something in his life. And this is one by Hafiz that speaks to that. It's called A Chance to Paint Each Other Gold. What would make a lover value you over other lovers they've known? And tell me about your favorite place to eat or the finest meal you ever had. There is something in caring touch, and he emphasizes caring touch, that your memory has recorded, and it holds dear because it nourishes as few things can. A sincere wanting and need to artfully give is inherent in love, and love will get its way. For patience it knows, and what a strength that is. We subtract or add to our beauty with each movement and sound. Look, we have a chance to help paint each other gold. The closest thing to amorous play with God in form should be the goal of any intimacy between us. Us, he emphasizes us, those who seek that sacred friendship and can gaze at each other in appreciation in places we allow few to ever see. Hafiz.
So everybody's familiar with Hafiz.
Words fitly spoken.
Yes, yes. As we're watching this, knowing that we want to do something, it's really interesting to think how would be effective. What would be effective in terms of, the presentations. Ron and I have been thinking about this for a long time. That's why we started doing the videos. We take only a few statements from his poems to music, and, again, because each one is so full because of readitation, because of reading for 40 years, where we took one, and then Vistar meetings, we take one paragraph and stay on it for 2 hours, even if we had to be quiet, even if we had to take one word like majesty, the sound of the word, the letters, what they look like, that J, that M. What is the color of majesty? So majesty, you know, as Rumi says, half-heartedness does not reach into majesty. You set out to find God, but you stop at mean-spirited roadhouses. Gamble everything for love if you're a true human being. If not, leave this gathering. Rumi was not a, he was a little, you know.
Correct.
he kicked ass, you know. So yeah, so how are we doing here? Okay, that was a lot, John. That was beautiful. Hafiz. Beautiful.
Can I just say, I would just love to get Jordan to say some more about, I'd like to hear his participation in some way. I loved his voice.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yes, Jordan, do you remember any, Jordan, we did an entire hour-and-a-half presentation of the poems of Mirabai with 12 people in it with music that we all downloaded together. And Jordan was Krishna. And Jordan spoke from the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so I just want to tell you there's a lot that happened in the years before. But Jordan, anything you'd like to come in with, I would be thrilled to hear. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
So recently I've been reading a book called Learning to Pray by Father Martin. He's a Jesuit priest. And I guess for me, just coming back to prayer it's more of getting reacquainted with prayer, because when I was growing up, although we did go to church, I don't remember prayer being as a focal point. So I've been reading this book, and it's kind of an uncomplicated introduction to prayer, and it's very open-minded. So for me, that's kind of the draw. And he gives some suggestions about prayer, and just reading the prayers just brings back the feeling of poetry. You know, we're talking a lot about meaning of words, and of course there's a lot of meaning in prayer. There's a lot of poetry in prayer. You know, whether it's a C or B influence, it's pretty incredible. And allowing that to wash over you is an experience. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing recently. Listening and speaking prayer. So, and I just put something in the chat, a poem by Thomas Merton, and he kind of had an interesting life. He was kind of a rebel, and then he eventually settled down and started writing. And he was a prolific writer, but he's written some beautiful prayers too.
Jordan, would you read it? Do you want to read it?
Sure. I don't know if it has a title, but
It's okay.
I don't think it matters. My Lord God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I'm actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore will I trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone.
Thomas Merton.
Yeah.
And that's a prayer that would make me cry. That is just beautiful. Thank you, Jordan.
So before I give it over to Ron, maybe Ron, you have something to end us. Just because Jordan did that, I just have to do this one thing from Rumi. I'm sure we all have something, but here's the same, I think, the same, I don't know what to call it. The same reverberation, okay? All day I think about it. And then at night I say it. Where did I come from? And what am I doing? I have no idea. This drunkenness began in some other tavern. When I will be completely sober, I will be home. But now, who is it in my ear that hears my words? Who is it that says words with my mouth? What is the soul? I cannot stop asking. If I could taste one sip of an answer, I'd break out of this prison for drunks. I did not come here of my own accord, and I will not leave that way. Whoever brought me here will have to take me home. So we could have whole threads of words that are on the same kind of thing. So, wow. Ron, take us home.
Well, I'm going to read something that comes from, I think, one of our responsibilities as poets. And we certainly do this in different ways, but it really is to shed light on the current scene, on things that are happening now. Whether it's a clarification from a different point of view, whether it's an outright scream of rebellion or defiance. But I've always felt that as part of the subject matter, put it that way, which has motivated me. So I will read you something. It's a little bit on the longer side, but not too long. And it also brings up a whole other point that hopefully when we get together again, we will be considering, which is the dramatic element in poetry, how we read it, how we stage it. What do we need to do to really bring it across? So this one is called Late Night Questions, Colorado. Oh God, let me live with uncertainty. Let me embrace a not knowing that puts my life up for grabs with the last choice made, and still go on with a longing unabated, a vision undimmed. The poetry waits. It demands something new. an opening of a sight that wakes from its cocooned focus and turns outward to respond to some urgent need, to some whispered significance. The pines and the aspens, the cold wind at 9,000 feet, the purity of an unfiltered blue sky. And they push them down blindfolded, men, women, and children, and shoot them in the head. Is a screen enough? What will that accomplish? 26 are shot at Newtown. The people gather in compassion, and the gun laws remain unchanged. We speak of evolution and secretly hope for a 10% majority that will shift the whole. The universe's essence is good. It is love. I believe this. So they gang rape a woman in front of a husband, and I hurt and hurt, but they are so far away. What is a righteous man or woman? Where and who are they? So that Sodom and Gomorrah will not be destroyed again. Where are the angels that warn? And where is the higher ground? Barbara Marx Hubbard says, we wake to choice instead of chance. We choose to intend. We can choose to commit. Other powers do we have? Singer says, we have no choice but to exercise our free will. What the hell? Are we that valuable anyway? Billions of Earth-like planets throughout our galaxy. Who's done the arithmetic? Christ, we need help. The gaps are so huge. Does cosmic law allow skipping of grades, battlefield commissions for a species? I don't fly in my dreams anymore. Lions stopped chasing me long ago, as did giant waves engulfing the land. I wish to be used to earn the verdict, good and faithful servant. But I hesitate to take the achievement test, the one that weighs deeds against talents that were gifted to me. Anyway, I hurt tonight and don't know anyone to answer my mute reaching. So I write late at night and wonder what answers will come in my sleep and whether I will remember them.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you to all the readings and the poets and the poems and the poetry.
It's a beautiful gathering, and I hope we can build on this, bringing us together and finding a unified voice, because poetry is the language of the soul, and we need soul conversations more than ever.
Took a picture of us for my cell phone. Yeah, by the way, there's another way of doing this kind of thing where I put my cell phone up and recorded little bits and then just threw them out on Facebook, you know, during conversations or people speaking. Or, there's so much, you know, I'm a lover of the technological possibilities. Even at my 77-year age. Barbara Marx Hubbard once said to us, she used to stay at our house, she said to me, because I told her that the people on her courses don't like to go on the computer, and so they need help, and she goes, I'm a dinosaur walking through the internet. I'm a dinosaur walking through the internet. She says, if they can't get on it, they can't be evolutionaries. I go, okay. You know, here
As I was listening to you, I just was getting this instructions to poetry. Occupy technology.
Yeah. And the presentation, and by the way, memorizing poems. I put a little thing in here, especially if you're the poet, memorize your poem. I mean, by heart, remember by heart? It's true, by heart. And because we had this voice point ensemble where we learned people learned the poems by heart and had to perform them. You know, like I have all these poems in my head that I can just use, and they're just so wonderful. And they like, everywhere I go, I can be walking around somewhere, feel bad, and suddenly I can just take that poem and say it. They're not my poems, but you know, doesn't matter. But I mean, it's a great exercise. I mean, it might take for a long time or not, but it doesn't matter. You just keep saying the words, take 2 lines and say them over and over again till they're by heart. And then when you speak, you can speak right to the audience with the poems. So, you know, one of the things of reading like this, we have to look at all that. See this? You know, people watch Audrey Kitagawa, everybody. Watch Audrey Kitagawa, Parliament of World Religions, when she speaks. And that's all written up here on her computer, but she knows how to look and she knows the words so well that it's her and the screen is one, but she has it written, so she doesn't have to think all the time about it. So that's another thing, how to put it on our screen, like Robert, put it on your screen and do a lot of drama. Robert's an actor also. So there's a lot of possibility, because we did this. It was called Voice Point Ensemble for 8 years, where we acted out poems. We produced them with music and everything. So love to talk to anyone here who's interested in that and who has any kind of technology. And we can get lots of help, Becky Suzik and all these people. There's so much help around to do things like that. So, you know, just a question of having the time to put it together. But it's so much fun. Anybody want to say anything? End this, Ron?
I think it's interesting that the first thing that you put up on the screen, it was titled Indivisible. Indivisible. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
All right.
I love that, in the service to transcendency. You know, the poetry of the whole, in the service to transcendency. See the beautiful color flags there. Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone. It was wonderful to be together. There was so much more. So much.
These are flags of one family on earth and in the service of transcendency.
In the service of transcendency.
Very nice, Linda.
Okay. I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Very soon. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.